Welcome to the Dawn and Steve Plus podcast, fueled by Raphael's Roastery and supported by you. Connect to us on socials or dawnandsteveplus.com.
Dawn and Steve plus Justin Gambino with us in the studio. Friend, it's been a minute since we've seen you. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
How do you like the new digs?
I love it.
Yeah? It's the first time you've been in this studio.
It is different, but I love it.
And guess what? We don't have to stop for any spots or commercials.
Come on.
Or songs or anything like that. We can just talk.
I love it.
It's so good.
Thanks for having me. How long has it been?
Since we've seen you?
It's been a year.
It's got to be
year and a
over
half.
a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess 2 years is what I think.
I think it was October 2023.
That's probably about right. So a year and a half. A little better.
You got a better memory than both of us, by far.
We know he has a better
I
memory.
remember you were about to go on vacation somewhere like Mexico or something like that.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
can you remember when you went to Mexico?
Which time,
I think it
Justin?
was, I want to say it was November. So it probably was October. You were in studio.
October.
Yeah.
I want to say it was end of October.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, he's good.
He's very good. He's very good. If for friends that haven't met Justin before, which camera am I looking at, Briggs? Can you tell me? If you're watching on YouTube, I'm
There's
searching.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm
just
searching.
5 to choose from.
I know. Which one? That? Okay. All right. I'm going to look at that camera. Justin, for friends that are just meeting you for the first time, let's talk a little bit about how you came to know the Lord. Because you were raised in church.
My whole life.
Homeschooled.
Yeah.
Like you had a lot of people pouring a lot of life into you.
A lot, yeah.
And then I want to pick up where you step into and then.
You want to pick up and then?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah, like you said, raised in church my whole life. Brought my Bible to church and strummed on it like a guitar. Like that was little Justin, 5-year-old Justin. And I think it's, looking back, I think it's crazy to think how right whenever I get my first guitar in my hands is whenever I get my first job. I start getting introduced to a different crowd than what I was raised around. And so I believe that the enemy could see like, oh, the Lord's trying to set him up for his calling. Let's kind of throw a wrench in the plan. And so at the age of 15, I start partying on the weekends. I'm wearing these different masks. I go to church on Sunday, go to church on Wednesday, and then party on the weekends. And you know what follows with all that stuff.
Sure.
You go down into a path of addiction, and that was me, a path of addiction and just being around the wrong people, which led to breaking the law. And then now I'm standing before a judge maybe 2 months after I graduated.
Wow. That had to be knee knocking. Were you scared? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
Does it all come back to you?
Yeah, I remember. I remember putting on my church clothes, like a pair of clothes that I would usually wear to church, but I'm not going to church now. Now I'm going to get judged for what I had done wrong, and I'll never forget that.
I would think not.
I'll never forget that. I'll never forget walking up those courthouse steps and thinking to myself, "How did I get here? I know exactly what I did.
Sure.
I know exactly how I got here, but." It all started, maybe 12 turns ago.
Sure.
It wasn't just like one turn.
Slow
it was
fade,
like
incremental steps.
little bitty steps, and then before you know it, I'm standing before a judge, and I'm looking at jail time, or I'm looking at a felony on my record, or I'm going to go into the military, and that was the option that he gave me.
Yeah.
He gave me a choice that day, which he didn't have to. Sure. He could have just said, you're a heathen, and 2 years, felony on your record, 2 years in the jail, and he could have done that. He could have been having a bad day, but he didn't. He saw a kid that he's never seen before, and he wanted to give me a second chance.
So good.
Yeah, that is really good. And man, there's so many little angles and things that could preach right out of that story right there, of giving a second chance and the grace that he extended in that way. So he gives you the choice. You make your decision. What did the military do? How did that impact your life?
At first, I was just thankful to not have to go to jail.
Yeah.
And I would like to say that I was just really proud to serve, but really I was not. It was a reality check for sure, because now I'm fighting for a freedom that I was taking for granted.
Yeah.
And I would like to say that I signed up with the intentionality of saying, like, I'm going to serve my country, but really it was avoiding jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that about a year and a half into my enlistment is whenever I really started growing just just this, not a bad pride, but I was very proud to serve. And I mean, I come from a family where, I have uncles that served in Vietnam. My grandfather, my mom's dad, was a Pearl Harbor survivor. My dad's dad served in the Air Force. So, there was a lot of military history in my family.
Yeah.
And I remember whenever we got deployed to Iraq, and I am just thousands of miles from home, right? And my guitar, my love and my joy back home is collecting dust.
Yeah.
Because I've made I've made these decisions, and now I'm where I'm at. And quite honestly, I've put God on the back burner. Like I am so busy blaming myself for what I've done and bearing that on my own shoulders, to where I'm just, I don't want to give God any part of my life at this point.
Yeah.
And, but being in the military, it just, I don't know. I would definitely say it helped me grow up really fast.
Yeah.
Really fast.
Yeah.
Oh, I imagine. And the Lord didn't have any part of your life because you were shutting him out. You were carrying the blame for your own actions and developing a pride for serving our country, which, by the way, thank you for
You're
serving.
welcome.
Really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And the freedoms that are afforded because of all of our servicemen and women.
Yeah.
I know, though, that God, you may have turned your back on him.
He never
does.
He never gave up on me.
He would orchestrate your steps to where you needed that guitar.
Oh, yeah. He totally did, because it was maybe halfway through the deployment. It had been months since I had stepped back into church. I've been in the military now for 2 years at this point, halfway through my first deployment. And I just get this tug on my heart to go to church on a Wednesday night. And usually when we would get done with our duties that day, we would either go to the gym or we would find something that's happening on base, just to kind of, after hours, kind of just blow off some steam. And I remember that there was a country artist that was performing that night, doing a concert. And all my buddies were like, hey, let's go to the concert. I don't think I'm supposed to be there. I think I'm supposed to go to the chapel. And so I went to the chapel, and this is like my first night there. And the entire congregation of like 12 of us, the chaplain asks all of us, we need someone to lead worship. We need someone to play the guitar. Does anybody here play the guitar, lead worship? And I'm looking around thinking, there's got to be someone else here, because I don't want to do it. Like, I'm not going to raise my hand. I'm not going to do this. But then next thing I know, he's looking at me because I'm raising my hand. And next thing I know, I'm calling my dad, and I'm asking my dad to send me my guitar. And that's the part of the story where it just kind of stops me in my tracks, because as a guy that used to be a prodigal, and just, it makes me think of like, oh man, what were the thoughts of my earthly father, hearing the voice of his prodigal son calling home and saying, Dad, there's this opportunity to lead worship here. Like, can you send me my guitar? And of course, what does my dad do? My dad packs that guitar
as fast as he can get that there, right?
Oh my gosh. He packed it so good in those styrofoam peanuts and sent it out to Iraq. And then next thing I know, I'm leading worship. And yeah, God never gave up on me.
Yeah.
He knew exactly where I was going to be to put that guitar back in my hands.
Yeah. Have you ever asked your dad what
Yeah.
he was thinking when you made that phone call home?
Yeah, once. So the last time I saw you guys, October.
Yeah.
We remembered that. That was right after the release of the Made New record, where I told my testimony in 13 songs, and that opened up a door for me to start sharing my testimony more, which I had never done it before. Been doing music now for, full time. Next month will be 10 years since I quit my job. And, I never really got honest with the audience, with my audience about my backstory. People that really knew me growing up, they knew what I went through.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the people that are following my journey, from a year, 2, 3 years ago, they don't know those kind of details. And I never came out and said that kind of stuff. So now, the last couple years, I've been sharing that testimony. So the more I've been sharing it, the more I would think, what were the thoughts? What were the emotions of my dad?
Yeah.
And I remember at the end of that year, I want to say that it was maybe a week or two after I met you guys. I text my dad and I'm like, hey, can you come over for coffee? I want to talk to you. I want to ask you some questions. And he's like, sure. I'll never forget what he said. He said, I remember we were just praying for you. And whenever you left, it was like, we just like took a deep breath in and I felt like I couldn't breathe. But whenever you called and you said, there's this opportunity for me to lead worship, he said, I felt like I could just exhale because I knew that God had you in the palm of his hands.
Wow.
And that was just such a powerful moment. It was just, like we're doing here, sitting at a table, drinking some coffee, having a conversation. That was me and my dad at my dining room table at my house years later. This was 2007 whenever I called my dad. And, and I think it's really special that I had the opportunity to ask my dad that my dad is still on this side of eternity. And I had the opportunity to ask him and, and he was able to answer without weeping.
That is impressive, honestly, because as I think from a parent's perspective, if you have some child that is prodigal or someone you love so deeply that's carrying a load that you just wish you could take from them, you wish that they didn't have to be underneath that. And then to hear the voice of that person saying, hey, I think when because you're walking with the Lord and what the Lord is doing. Just the grace. But doesn't it teach you something about the nature and the character of God? Like obviously fast forward all these many years and you can look back and you see where the Lord helped and was there and carried and, shored up and all the things. But in those moments, we just don't even think we need him. And when was it that Justin Gambino said, okay, Father, I need you?
I would say that it was through all the shutdowns. Through all the shutdowns in 2020.
Okay.
It was kind of ironic how I was about to release a few songs with the theme of Psalm 46:10, to be still and know.
Be still and know that I'm God. Yep.
Yeah. And I'll never forget feeling like I was stripped from my calling while, everything shut down. Like this massive tour that I was about to go on is like canceled. And so all these cancellations, and I'm thinking, okay, Lord, I know that you've called me to do this, but I feel like I'm just sitting here twiddling my thumbs. And what God reminded me of was just to slow down. And I'll never forget, I did end up going on the road, and then more things started to cancel as I'm on the road. And I would grow just frustrated with it all. But at the same time, the Lord said, Justin, what I really want to happen is for your heart to break when mine breaks. And whenever he said that to me, it did not affect me. And I knew, I mean, this is 2020. This is like a kid that is raised his whole life in church. Like, I mean, I've seen so many times where God has been just fighting for me, but it's also like, it wasn't, I don't know how to say it, but it was just like kind of one ear and out, in one ear and out the other.
Familiar. Yeah, Lord, I know.
Just like, I know, I've heard it all my life, you know, just callous to it. And I remember telling the Lord, I said, all right, the next 2 weeks of events have canceled. And so I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to sit here. I'm sitting in someone's backyard in Northern California with the next 2 weeks of events canceled. And I told the Lord, I said, Lord, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to wait until I feel broken from your broken heart. And he just told me, he's like, I just want to spend time with you. And you're just too busy for me to spend time with you. And that was the year, at the end of 2020, that was the year whenever the Lord told me to go home and host a night of revival with my band. I think we have talked about this before. But I was just like, okay, I thought in my heart, I was like, all right, Lord, I want to do that. I want to go home and bring revival to my hometown. And where do you want me to do this? What's the venue? He said, I want you to do it at the courthouse. No.
Full circle moment.
I don't want to do that, Lord.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, Lord, you're going to have to come up with a different venue or find a different servant, because I don't want to do it. I don't want to go back to the place where I have bad memories. So if we're not going to come up with a different venue, you can forget it. Like, I lost that argument, of course.
Yeah,
right.
I suspected
But
you did.
On December 12th, 2020, we hosted this night of revival, and it was amazing to see how the community was just so hungry for it, because we're coming out of all these lockdowns and we're coming out of these, social distancing and all that stuff. And I remember selfishly thinking to myself, standing on that stage thinking, the Lord has brought me here to bring revival to my hometown. And ever so gently, ever so kindly, the Lord said, Justin, I brought you here for us. You think you've gotten it. You think you understand. But really, I brought you here because I just want to spend time with you. I want to remind you that the plan that I had for you 16 years ago, whenever you were walking up this courthouse, I brought you back to the same place to remind you that the plan that I had for you then is the plan that I have for you now. The only difference is that I have your undivided attention. That's the only difference between 18-year-old Justin and Justin now.
Yeah.
That I have your undivided attention. I would say that is whenever it was like, it became personal.
Sure.
And every word that I was singing, I remember hitting my knees in that moment, weeping, and the rest, my band, they're just like, we're just gonna play these. We're just gonna play these 4 chords, and just Justin is on his face, on his knees, and you can find this on YouTube. You can find that moment because the videographer got it.
Oh wow!
He got my ugly cry and everything.
Oh wow!
I am on my face and I'm just weeping, and I would say that life has not been the same since, because it was after that was whenever I started writing the Made New record, telling my story in those songs. That's whenever I was like, all right, I'm going to tell this story.
And you continue to write and continue to come out with new music. In fact, there's a brand new song. I mean, like, just out here. You've mentioned this a couple of times, this idea that God was always there. God never gave up on you. And that's this new song. So give us the backstory of this new song that is just hit.
Yeah, You Were Always There. I love it whenever songs come out of a journal. Sometimes when I'm on the road, a line or two will just hit me, and it'll either be in my phone or I'll actually write it down in my journal, like a physical journal, you know?
Yeah.
And it was, I want to say it was like September time frame when I wrote these 2 lines down. And I wrote down, you knew my name before I took a breath. You knew that I would run before I took a step. Yet you pursued my heart. I just wrote that down.
Yeah.
And the producer I've been working with, his name's Walter. We were just, collaborating, writing for the third record. It's like, you have any ideas? And I was just going through my journal. I was like, I got these 2 lines. And before I knew it, like 3-4 hours later go by, and like the song has been written.
You get a song.
Yeah, wow.
And we just chased it. And I can honestly say that this song it's probably my favorite that I've ever written. I mean,
Why?
I think it just wraps up my testimony in this 3.5 minute song, I feel like when I wrote The Record Made New, like I touched on little bits of my testimony, but it was like, this song was like, it just touches everything in 3.5 minutes. Like I can listen to this song and not feel like I'm listening to myself sing.
Yeah.
It just ministers to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's why.
Yeah.
I think that's the Lord.
Right?
I think that's the Lord.
I know that's the Lord.
I know. It's amazing when an artist can say that about a song.
Yeah.
And God's just all in that. It's for him. It's through him. It's about him.
Yeah.
And it resonates in your soul.
Yeah.
And that means he's going to use it to resonate in others' soul.
Yeah.
So we'll put the link in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to have to pick up this conversation and do another podcast with you. So don't go anywhere. We're going to have part 2 of this conversation coming up in just a moment. And as Don said, links in the show notes, not only to more information about Justin and ways that you can get connected with him there, but Raphael's Roastery. Appreciate them helping make this possible. But thanks for watching and being our +1 today.
Thanks for joining us for the Dawn and Steve Plus podcast. We're a listener-supported, non-profit podcast, and we're grateful for your generous support. You can give at dawnandsteveplus.com. Our producer is yours truly, Stephen Briggs, with assistance from Chris Westmoreland. Please like and subscribe to Dawn and Steve Plus anywhere you get your podcasts and on all our socials. Links to what we talk about and to Raphael's Roastery are in the show notes below. Thanks for joining us and being our +1.